Knoops has already established 25 stores in the UK and plans to expand to 40 by the end of 2025.
I got spoiled rotten as a child, and it was always chocolate. And because I was so good and I knew what reward was waiting for me at the end of the day, it was always chocolate. So I always had this memory of chocolate, of being the reward at the end of the day. I wanted a hot chocolate. And what I found was not very satisfying. It was either mass market, undefined, origin, very sugary, or so high-end that I would have to take a credit in order to afford that. So a little bit out of my reach at that time. So I thought there's nothing in the middle. It gives me choices, that is affordable, but still premium. I will never forget this. The first customer came in, looked around, very interested, and ordered a double espresso. It was a full-page spread in the Saturday supplement. This is the best hot chocolate in the world.
Huh?
If the customer asks, recommend me something, I always empower them to be honest. And I say, I really love the 49. If this is too sweet or too dark, let's go there. But I want them to be honest to the customer, take responsibility, and then immediately follow up afterwards. Is this the right one?
Is there anything you could have done differently in the early days? What would you have changed?
Start earlier. But I mean, I'm 54 now. It took that experience I had before as an artist and working in consumer research, traveling the world, summing this all up. That brought me to Knoops. So I wish I would have had these experiences earlier. I was in Venezuela with a cacao family that has been farming for 200 years, and I've seen the beans and the fields where the cacao is coming from. So there's an emotional connection there.
Before we get into today's episode, I want to give a shout out to a special sponsor, Sam Lawrence Recruitment. We all know that finding the right people or the right job can feel really overwhelming, and that's exactly where Sam comes in. He really just gets it. It's not just about ticking boxes, it's about connecting the right people with the right opportunities. He takes the time to understand you and exactly what you're looking for, whether you're building a team or taking that next career leap. So definitely get in touch. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. At Getting to Grow, I believe that growth starts with connection. And that's where our sponsor, We Are All Marketing, comes in. I'm super excited to be partnering with Vic and the team over at We Are All Marketing. They're not just a marketing agency, they're storytellers, strategists, and your biggest advocates. Whether you're building a brand, launching a product, or strengthening your digital presence, We Are All Marketing helps you turn ideas into impact. With a personalized, results-driven approach, they ensure your vision reaches the right audience in the right way. Ready to grow your business? Visit weareallmarketing.com and see how they can help you thrive. Getting to Grow is also brought to you by the Coconut Collab. And full disclosure, as I'm sure most of you are aware, I work there, so I know how much love goes into everything that we make. We're all about creating delicious, dairy-free, plant-based treats that do not compromise on taste. From our creamy yogurts to our indulgent desserts, everything's made with coconuts and a whole lot of care. If you're looking for something naturally good but seriously tasty, and my favourite is just our natural coconut yogurt, I have it most mornings with granola and lots of honey. Trust me, you're going to absolutely love it. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Ned this evening. I hope you all had a gorgeous, gorgeous day in the sunshine, because it has been phenomenal outside. How are we all? Good. I hope you're excited. This is actually my second live podcast at the Ned. I did one earlier this year with the founder of Grenade, but this evening it's all about Jens Knoop. Can we please have a round of applause?
Thanks, guys. Thank you for joining us tonight.
For those of you who don't know, I am Zoe Fox, and I'm the founder and host of the Getting to Grow podcast, where I chat to founders in the food and beverage world about kind of their journey. So from early stages to kind of what they're doing at the moment to what's future and kind of everything in between. But as I said, tonight we are joined by Jens Knoop, the founder of Knoops. Now, I've got to read this out because there's so many amazing kind of facts and figures about him that I couldn't learn it all off by heart. So please bear with me. But Knoops has already established 25 stores in the UK and plans to expand to 40 by the end of 2025, while also looking to launch in global markets beyond the UAE, where the brand has already got a store in Dubai. Recently, the brand was ranked in the Financial Times FTSE 1000 Europe's fastest growing companies in 2025. Jens has brought an innovative and personalised approach to something as classic and comforting as chocolate. You took a niche and you've had a lot of fun with it. And I went into the store on Saturday with my mum. And what was really cool actually is when I went in, I looked at all the there's so many different flavours and kind of what you can add on. And it gave me like periodic table vibes because...
Absolutely.
Is that, yeah, because it's like there's so... I was like, my gosh, what? There's 70 to 73 and it brought me back, like I'm so dyslexic. So I was just like, where do I begin?
But we could talk about this later on because a lot of people have the fear of numbers. I'm not great with numbers now, I always admit that. But I do understand we have to bring some sort of order into this chaos. And I thought, let's start with the percentages. But there are different ways of approaching to find the perfect chocolate for you.
Which we'll get into. But your passion for sourcing the best cacao beans, which everybody, look at this.
Venezuela in the house.
From around the world, crafting unique blends that has made Knoops a much-loved brand. And today we're going to dive into all about it, your life, what you kind of were doing before, and then obviously to the household name that it is today. There will be a 15 minutes Q&A at the end, so please do get some questions ready. And it is a live podcast recording, so if you don't mind turning off your phones or just making sure that they're on silent, that would be fab. And one last thing, this door is shut, so if you do need the toilet, you just need to head out the back. Amazing. So, Jens, I like to start at the beginning when I chat to all the founders that I speak to. And right at the beginning. So when I was doing my research, it was your grandmother that used to reward you with chocolate. And it sounded like it was like this kind of ceremonial sort of experience. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I was spoiled. I got spoiled, rotten. As a child, and it was always chocolate, and because I was so good and I knew what reward was waiting for me at the end of the day, it was always chocolate. So I always had this memory of chocolate, of being the reward at the end of the day, or I didn't come on like a feral child, but so it was this very emotional, strong bond with chocolate. But of course, I never knew you could actually make a career out of that. So that started much, much later. I gathered a lot of other information prior to my first store opening in Rhine 2013. So what did I do that influenced my chocolate journey? I studied fine art. Obviously, I didn't make any money, but it fueled my creativity. I worked in consumer research that gave me a lot of insights in the desires of consumers. I heard a lot about small, affordable luxury, which I think is just fantastic. And chocolate is the key for that. And this is what I heard globally. So I thought, okay, this is all very interesting. What do I do with this amount of information? And the key moment when I thought there is something was living just around the corner here, actually, next to Bart's Hospital, and walking the winter of 2012, 2013 into the West End. It was cold. I wanted a hot chocolate. And what I found was not very satisfying. It was either mass market, undefined, origin, very sugary, or so high-end that I would have to take a credit in order to afford that. So a little bit out of my reach at that time. So I thought there's nothing in the middle that gives me choices, that is affordable, but still premium. I was also living on the south coast, East Sussex, Rye, if you've ever been there. If you haven't been there, you got to go, because that is where the original Knoop store is, and Rye's pretty as well. But somebody gave me this property, which is just absolutely stunning. It was an old art gallery, a complete white cube, which I like anyway, and that gave me the space to impose that idea of doing something with chocolate, which I like, which I have a very strong emotional response, where I see a niche. I didn't see any other competitors on the market, so why not, in April 2013, open the world's first chocolate, specifically chocolate drinks cafe in Rhine, East Sussex, where else?
I mean, I had so many questions in between from the start to now that but I'm just gonna reverse a bit.
Okay.
Just gonna reverse. So when you were younger in Germany, I actually found out, and I didn't know this, but you guys celebrate, well, Christmas Eve is a lot bigger for you than Christmas Day, right?
Yeah, 24th. Everything happens at 6 o'clock on the 24th. Everything is hidden behind a closed door, and then the big revelation on the 24th, 6 o'clock. Presents, mayhem, screaming children, a light dinner, and then everybody passes out. And then the next days are all about recovery and get the family coming together. So the 24th is the big day.
And there was a tradition that you decorate a gingerbread house on the 24th, I was reading, is that right?
Yeah, and very often it's inedible, but yes, massive, the bigger the better, and beautiful decoration, full of sugar and fairly flavorless.
And it's really interesting, although I'm very lucky to speak to so many amazing founders, and they either start businesses from like a passion, like as a childhood memory, or it was from like a need, so they kind of found something that they weren't getting already from what was out there. And is that where your love of chocolate originated from when you were younger?
Yeah, absolutely. That association with the treat, with a very fond childhood memory, that's where the love for chocolate was coming from. But I knew nothing technical about chocolate. I knew nothing about sourcing, that it can be a career. Yeah. I never thought of that as well.
And fast forward a few years, you came over to the UK. You came to study in Bournemouth University?
At the Bournemouth and Poole College of Art and Design.
Okay.
Photography. Great. You don't make any money out of that, especially when you come out of an art college. Yes, that's what I did. Worked as a photographer.
And were you and then how did you, I guess, transition into the world of work?
So I was doing some commercial photography, but I was the proud artist who didn't want to do commercial work. So I decided to split art and commerce and went for a commercial route, going into video streaming, which was focus groups, opinion research. And this is where I heard the voices of small, affordable luxury.
And the kind of little permissible treats that we like in the UK,
Absolutely.
But
everywhere,
also, I was going to say, actually, everywhere. And was there a time when you saw it in an experience or whatever, when you thought people really like having this small treat, the small luxuries versus, obviously spending a lot of money on something?
Yeah, and you saw it, I think specifically in fashion or in makeup, or when you just...
Yeah, girls
stepped it up
lipstick.
a little bit, the lipstick, and you just went for the next more expensive brand, even though the color might be the same, but it had a fancy name. Or the belt. This small item, you want to treat yourself without breaking the bank. But again, it took me a while to get to chocolate.
Yeah, and it was walking down in the West End where you were like, I want a hot chocolate, and you couldn't find it.
And I couldn't find it, absolutely. Still tough.
And then, then Rye, and I'm interested in Rye because I've actually been to Rye, and you're right, it is stunning. It's so pretty. It's absolutely beautiful. I went there a couple of years ago with my mum, and we had a lovely weekend. I love the cobbledy streets and everything. So tell me about this. Tell me about this cube that you were given, the white box, as you say.
Okay, so I connected with the tenant there because we're both photographers. He wanted to move, so that place was empty, and it's just... It's a beautiful town. It has a lot of heritage, a lot of history. They're very proud of it. The positioning of the building is just absolutely stunning. A 3 aspect ratio. You can see the whole landscape. You can see Dungeness if you're into that view, the power station in Dungeness. But it's right next to a very important landmark, the Landgate, which was built in, I think, 1366. And everybody who drives into Rye will have to drive through that Landgate and can see Knoops on the left-hand side. I loved it. I introduced myself to the landlady. She asked for a business plan. I had no idea what that is and what to do with it. So I thought, okay, let's just make her some hot chocolates. She liked it. Now she's very proud. But obviously it was a dare because nobody has done that before in a sleepy town, or let's say a town that's on and off, because there are days when there's absolutely nobody there, and then it's just absolutely relentless on beautiful weekends during the summer. But it was just, I had to do it. It was a stomach feeling, it was a gut feeling, it felt right. I loved the product, so everybody else will as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so your first day of opening, who was your first customer?
Oh, Christ. I will never forget this. The first customer came in, looked around, very interested, and ordered a double espresso. Oh. Okay, well, I forgive him. It's fine. But the coffee is also very good, naturally. But It was slow at the beginning because people were curious, but the locals thought they really don't need another coffee shop because they didn't understand the concept yet. It was obviously a slightly more minimal environment than the local communities is used to because it's more oldie worldly with corners and big seats. And I had a store there was absolutely no seating. It was quite bare and very focused on the menu wall, which was the highlight and still is the highlight in the stores. So it took a little while, but eventually they came around to it.
And you mentioned how like hot chocolate and your stores and Knoops is so sensory driven. You walk in, there's a lot going on. You can see it being made. You can see the kind of all the different flavors and the add-ons. How did you go about in the early days, I guess, developing your range of flavors? How many different percentages of chocolate do you have in store?
I just mentioned that when I thought it was right, I assumed others would like it as well. So I made a decision for others because it's a concept that wasn't there before. So I took responsibility to make choices. The menu was smaller because there was also less chocolate to choose from. The market has changed now. I experimented at the beginning. It was a very short period of experimentation because I opened knowing pretty much nothing on the first day. And the first day, that's when my real learning started. Just like when I came over to England and I thought I spoke English, try again. I may know the grammar, but I didn't know how to communicate. And this is exactly what had happened. I had to be in the store day one and get to know my customers, get to know the texture of the chocolate, how they like it, the temperature, the volume, the pricing as well, of course. This was all based on customer feedback. And nobody left the store without giving feedback to me. That was just essential.
Like that's really obviously, as you're right, essential at the early days because like learning from your customers and being on the ground with them is so key. Do you go back every now and again into stores now and kind of get behind the machines?
Absolutely, because I love to. I stay connected to the managers, the staff in the store because it gives me a sense of temperature, of vibe, of we are in 26 stores now, and Belfast will be different to Rye, will be different to Chelsea. And I want to understand what the customer feedback is. And that very often, besides Google and you may remember TripAdvisor, but I also hear it through the store staff, what customers want, what they don't want. Inspiration, of course, I get a lot from them as well. And I like being there. I like being in the stores. I don't hesitate grabbing a customer and just ask. I have no hesitation. Very often I don't introduce myself. I kind of eavesdrop there and listen to what they're saying and then, oh yeah, very good choice. But I want to be connected to the staff because they are an extension of me. And that's all over the UK and internationally as well.
And when you had your first store in Rye, how many flavours did you have at that point when you opened? So
I started with, I think it was 7 chocolates because this is all I could source with my limited knowledge I had. So 7 chocolates. I also had milkshakes. I didn't have the iced chocolates yet, but I did have a great amount of additional ingredients already. And I think there were 20 ingredients you can add to it. And I had pretty much the same milk choices. So over the years, all that has changed was more chocolates, and I wish there would be more space on the wall, but I will be in trouble because choosing then would be even more difficult. But I promised that we stop at 21 chocolates to choose from. And then we also added, because of the strong vegan trend, which is not a trend obviously anymore, we also added the iced chocolates, so classic chocolate milk, which are a little bit lighter option. And that has been added, I think, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, it is delicious. You all must go and try. And actually, just before I forget, you've all got a goodie bag on the way out as well, which has 2 different blends in there as well. So make sure you get your hands on them. And how did you go about sourcing the chocolate?
So again, at the beginning, because it was a small business, very low volume, I sourced what was on the market. Off the shelf, and now all this has changed. I've educated myself. We have direct contacts with, direct relationships with farmers and makers. We are at a size where we can have bespoke products just for us from the farm, the volume we need. But at the beginning, it really was, okay, let's see who else added chocolate. What else is available? What do customers want? Do they want flavorful? Do they want more subtle flavors? Milk chocolate, I immediately had to add more milk chocolates to it. We are in the UK, everybody loves milk chocolate, so I had to crank that up very quickly. But it's based on, okay, I have those 7, this works, that doesn't work, let's add more what works.
I guess as well, when you had your first store, it's a great way to like test before you scale. So you can go and say, yeah, actually, this is working really well. I know that this has, if you know, it's the best seller here, it's probably the best seller generally across the population. And at the time, what was the best seller in your first store?
Milk chocolate, classic milk chocolate. Not even a complex flavor profile. It's the chocolate we all grew up with, the treat. A slightly caramelly, fairly sweet. But then you can play with that center. At the moment, it's labeled as a 34% classic milk chocolate with caramel notes on our menu. But then you can start sourcing around it and have darker milk chocolates or from specific origins with special flavor profiles. They still sell really, really well.
And rye is obviously, as we've spoken about, it's absolutely beautiful. But some people might say, you know, starting in quite a small little town might not have the footfall to kind of back your idea. But obviously, we now know it was an amazing kind of starting point. Would you say that you had advantages actually starting in that area than maybe somewhere like London, where you would think from day dot maybe you'd have kind of more footfall?
The advantage of being in Rye, in such a small town like Rye, is you can't miss the store. When you come to Rye, you will come to Knoops. You can't escape. Even if you thought you don't want a hot chocolate, this is the only thing you can do in Rye. So yeah, great advantage. Absolutely no competition. Yes, there are classic coffee houses and tea houses and then some restaurants, but absolutely nothing like Knoops. So it was a dare. But it was also quite a safe environment because there is no competition. And of course, the rent compared to London rents or leases is much lower, and the local authority was actually very generous and exempt me from business rates. Otherwise, it would have been a little bit more difficult at the beginning, but it was very supportive to bring something new, yet so familiar, to a town that is quite focused, being so close to the sea, on food. They have food festivals there, so they welcome new ideas, which hopefully, at this stage, cater for the whole family and for all the tourists as well as for the locals.
So the response from the village at the time, the community, it was great?
No. This is never going to work. Give it 3 months. He needs to add sandwiches. He should be higher up on the high street, not another coffee shop. Yeah, that's what it was.
And we all know, like, the power of community. It's so important to have, like, you know, your community, like, backing you and, like, understanding what you're doing. So how did you, I guess, then work your way around that big challenge?
Well, actually, the concept was proven because of Rye is very popular when it comes to tourists. It's an hour and a bit away. It's nice getting away from London. It's right by the sea. It's quaint. It has good food. So a lot of people came into Rye and spotted me because there was nowhere else to go, and they really enjoyed what they had there. I made sure that they all had their perfect chocolate drink, and that was noted. I don't know if you all remember TripAdvisor. It's from a long time ago.
I still use TripAdvisor. I'm big on reviews.
Okay, but it's below Google somewhere, you know. But suddenly, Knoops in Rye, which has no seating, no food, it's in a building that used to be stables for Forge, was #1 in East Sussex of all eateries. So Hastings, Brighton were all below me. So suddenly people thought, okay, there is something here. And then 2 years later, after my opening in 2015, I think, the Daily Telegraph came down and wrote, wanted to include me in an article about the trend of hot chocolates. And they asked me for some quotes. And then the writer came down again. And then they sent a photographer. And suddenly it was a full page spread in the Saturday supplement. This is the best hot chocolate in the world.
And then did you have literally queues out the door?
That's it.
Yeah.
No, actually, the locals gave me their blessing, brought down the supplement and asked if I have seen this. I thought, yes, I have.
Yeah.
But no, of course, then they noticed that I'm actually contributing something to the locals and to the local food scene, that I'm not taking away, that I'm adding something, that I'm not another coffee shop, that I stick to my philosophy, my taste, my path, and that I embrace what is around me. Yep.
Also bringing a lot more people down into Rye as well from like maybe surrounding areas, because they're not just going to come to your shop. They might then pop, I don't know, into a local like vintage store and then, other shops around there. So they're spending their money elsewhere as well.
Absolutely. And the positioning of the shops is so fortunate because there is a road where you absolutely cannot ever park, but there are 4 spots outside the store. So it almost becomes a drive-through. Nobody else has that. Yeah. So it was actually the wrong right end of the high street.
And chocolate tasting and blending is almost an art form. Could you share any early mistakes or learning moments when you were perfecting the product?
So I learned very, very fast. I started knowing about texture. I was also reading up about the preparation of chocolate drinks. And what was very important 4,000 years ago was the froth, the foam, the air that was infused into the chocolate drink, because the top of the drink was taken off and was either given as a gift to the gods or to the deities or to the king. They never finished the drink. So I thought, okay, I need to work with it. I obviously want everybody to finish the drink. So let's aerate the drink like a flat white or latte. So at the beginning, the very first drinks I made, a couple of weeks, were quite dense. Imagine French hot chocolates that are based on cream. Lots of chocolate, lots of cream, very heavy, a dessert. You wouldn't want this every day. I want people to have more hot chocolate every day, so I needed to twist it a little bit. And temperature, I pretty much got that right at the beginning, so it's drinkable straight away, but it's still perceived as a hot chocolate without burning yourself. What else? It was trial and error, but because I was in that store and I got instant customer feedback, because I wanted that and I wanted honest feedback, I adapted very, very quickly. When it comes to choosing the chocolates, I learned a dramatic lesson actually very recently, let's say 4 years ago or so. Don't eat the chocolate before you choose it as a drink. It tastes very, very different. So I had these wonderful beans from the Chiapas region in Mexico. 2 tons had been flown in. I was working with a chocolate maker to convert those beans into chocolate buttons for our hot chocolates. And the first test, solid chocolate, I was eating and I thought, this is the best chocolate in the world. Nobody can beat me. It had notes of cherry, which I'm very keen on. And then I threw it into hot chocolate and it tasted of ham. That's all it was. And I was so disappointed. And from then on, I decided I will never, ever, if I look specifically for drinking chocolate or chocolate that's to be used for drinking, I will never eat it before I test it as a drink to avoid disappointment. Then later on, if I decide this is a really good chocolate, let's eat it as well, just to detect if there are any flaws in there. But the first step is drink it first and then eat it, never the other way around. Everybody was disappointed and I cried a dry tear. Oh. Such good chocolate.
And like coffee culture is obviously massive in the UK. You know, we are total coffee snobs down south. Mm-hmm. And are you kind of coming in to bring in like chocolate culture and how, you know, instead of maybe going for your coffee in the morning, you walk past and go, do you know what, actually, I want a cup of hot chocolate on my way to work? Oh,
absolutely. For me, hot chocolate is the new coffee. Which other coffee shop would you see 21 different origins? That's not going to happen. It could, but it should be quite complex operationally. No, absolutely. We don't surf into addiction. Coffee is addiction. If I don't have, I don't know how you are, but if I don't have my second coffee in the afternoon, I do get a slight headache. So and that's where the second coffee helps. Chocolate has a very different job to do. It's about nourishment. Yes, there are carbohydrates and there's protein in there, but it's about escape. It's about gourmet experience. It's about childhood. It's about coming together. Coffee shops will probably never ever cater a whole family. You wouldn't bring your toddler into a coffee shop. That's just not the right environment. Also, we know that there are communities out there that religiously don't have coffee, but they love hot chocolates. Perfect. My best friends. I love them. But chocolate has that. It has a lot of attributes a coffee shop cannot deliver. Totally inclusive.
And talk to me about your stores. As I said, I went in on Saturday and there were so many different kind of options. How do you take the customer through, the array of options that there are?
So we said earlier on that a lot of people are scared of numbers. I'm one of them. So I would be confused, and it is a periodic table, but it has to have some order. So what I discovered when people struggle and look at those numbers and it all goes blank, I just tell them, forget what's on the menu. What's your favorite chocolate? Or what was the best chocolate you ever had? And very often we talk about skiing or we talk about Venice, never about the chocolate, but about the environment. We talk about dietary requirements. Some people prefer vegan, others have to be low sugar. Or when I'm really tuned into the customer, I ask, what's your mood? What do you fancy? And then I translate this into a certain flavor profile, into a percentage, and then usually the country associates certain images as well. Spices, if you want, I have it customized with one of our 20 spices. Then we forget everything that's behind us, just to take that fear of choosing wrong. And I empower every manager and whoever works in our store, if the customer asks, recommend me something, I always empower them to be honest. And I say, I really love the 49. If this is too sweet or too dark, let's go there. But I want them to be honest to the customer, take responsibility, and then immediately follow up afterwards. Is this the right one? If the customer says no, we drag them back into the store and say, okay, you're not leaving until you get it right. Because we know when the customer leaves and isn't satisfied, that feeling will linger like a bad aftertaste. They may even forget why they didn't enjoy Knoop. So I encourage everybody working in the stores, follow up with the customer, take responsibility, fix it immediately if possible, so the customer has a really good experience once they leave the store and want to come back.
Absolutely. I think otherwise, it can lead to bad word of mouth, and that can kind of be a whole different scenario. So how long did you have your store in Rye before you decided to open your next one?
It was about 7 years. So in 2019, William, who's now my CEO and the commercial brain, because I have a chocolate brain, he has a commercial brain, walked into my store. He got dragged in by his son. He used to live in the area, and he was sitting outside, looked at the customer profile, obviously tasted some chocolates, and everybody but me saw the bigger game. They saw the potential of Knoops. I was just concerned about the next customer, about the chocolate, about getting it right, making it interesting, being creative. But everybody else who was not standing behind the counter always said, you're going to be the next Starbucks, or you're going to take over the world, or this is really interesting when you go open your next stores. I didn't think that far. But William came in and said, how do you feel about bringing this to a wider audience, bringing this to London? And I always knew that I need a team, that I need partners who do understand the commercial side of this to make it commercially sustainable. And that's what happened in 2019. And we opened our first store in London 3 weeks before the first lockdown.
Yeah, that was my next question. How has the pandemic, how did that affect? I mean, obviously massively.
It's a mixed bag. Obviously, we were serving a treat, an escape, nourishment. At a gourmet level, most people wouldn't be able to make at home because they don't have the equipment, the choices of ingredients. So the product itself was extremely successful through the pandemic. Obviously, there were some retail spaces available because some closed. Kensington High Street, for example, one of our flagship stores, there used to be Carrefour Warehouse. Where are they now? We are in there. Perfect. So it was a tough time, obviously. But I think what actually was worse was, do you remember the pingdemic?
No.
When all the staff has been pinged because they walked into a supermarket and then they had to self-isolate even though they tested negative. But there was suddenly no staff available. That was rough. But yeah, I mean, the time was challenging because nobody knew how long it would last. But we knew that the product itself gives so much happiness to people that it will be foolproof. It will be COVID-proof.
And would you ever think about bringing it home to Germany?
I think it's on the list.
Okay.
Yeah. Culturally, food-wise, we are fairly similar. The winters are cold, the summers are hot. I can see that working. I can see that accepting interesting chocolates. And there is a chocolate scene in Germany as well.
And then transitioning into your retail line, how did you go from like bricks and mortar into kind of more of the at-home packaging?
Well, there was always, right at the beginning, there was always a demand for it, that people wanted to take it as a souvenir, as a gift for others, as a memory, as a memorabilia, I was in Rye and I went to the Knoops shop and now I want to bring it back to Birmingham, wherever they were living, and share it with my friends. So there was a demand. And of course, I was only open for 5 days. The shop was only open for 5 days. And then the other 2 days, I was in my kitchen doing the retail items. That has changed. But no, huge demand, really important for Knoops as well, because not everybody can get to the stores. And of course, some people just want to extend the experience they have in the stores to their home.
And in the early days, every founder and kind of entrepreneur has like big moments of doubt where they think, have I made a mistake? I can't do this. Were there any particular moments where you thought, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm tapping out?
Overall, never. But walk into a store on a Saturday morning, the milk hasn't been delivered, there's no electricity, the card machine is down, the ice cream hasn't been delivered for the milkshakes. I did say electricity is down because it rained the night before, yes. So that's where it gets tough. Yeah. And what I felt more than doubt was disappointment for the customer, that some of them made the journey to come to Rye and experience this, and I couldn't do it because the whole village had no power, no internet, or no water. This is where you think, okay, this is tougher than I thought it would be because it's taken out of my control. But otherwise, because I personally love the product so much, and I knew others would be out there as well, that I never had doubts that this is the wrong thing.
And being obsessed, as you said, with your customers and never disappointing them is so key, like making sure they are the centre of what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking personal responsibility for it. And this is what I encourage my staff to do as well, to take that responsibility and translate your passion and try to infuse that in the drink for the customer.
With what you've just said, you might not have an answer to my next question, but if there's anything you could have done differently in the early days, what would you have changed?
Start earlier.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it took, I'm 54 now. It took that experience I had before as an artist and working in consumer research, traveling the world, summing this all up, that brought me to Knoops. So I wish I would have had these experiences earlier, but it is what it is, and it's the time that it took to get to this.
And then moving on to, I guess, your like expansion periods, so going from 1 store to you're now 25. What were the operational challenges that you came up in kind of expanding? And obviously sometimes rapid growth isn't always, helpful in terms of where you want to end up.
What everybody said at the beginning, it's not going to be in the same without you. Kensington is not going to be the same as Rye with me being behind the counter. This is, of course, something you have to take into account straight away. And you either are prepared for growth or you're not. Immediately when we started talking about rolling out and having more stores, I was not allowed behind the bar anymore. I was just, no, people have to get used to the fantastic manager in Kensington and the amazing manager in Chelsea, who are doing a much better job than I ever did, obviously. But that fear at the beginning that, his name is above the store, it's not going to be the same. But it is. And they're even better at it. And they're coming up with fantastic recipes I never thought of. So staffing was always the big question mark. Are they going to translate my vision, my enthusiasm into the 25, 26 stores in Dubai? But there are very strict systems and training in place in order to carry that to Belfast, to Dubai, and to Cardiff.
That was going to be my next question. I think it's so hard, and a lot of founders that I speak to, they say they're obviously obsessed with their product. They're so passionate about what they do, and they love it, and they always want to replicate themselves, not from their kind of what they know point of view, but more from like their passion for their business, because that's what makes a product really like jump off the shelves, is like people are really buying people. And how did you find like training up the staff in the shop and ensuring that you had like the best people selling your chocolate? Because you're right, there's been so many experiences when I've been into shops where I've had a really bad experience and I thought, oh, I don't want to go back.
So we have an amazing store opening team of top managers from Kensington, from Rye, those who we know have the passion, who understand the product, who love it, who drink chocolate a lot. And those are the ones that train the new store managers. So there is a passing on of that vibe, that inspiration, that creativity that will be passed on by trusted, passionate people to infuse that into a store in Belfast. I keep on saying Belfast because I'm going up in 2 days. But that somebody who comes into Rye, not just technically, but also in terms of experience and mood, has a very similar experience in Belfast as in Rye.
Yeah, I think you that's like, key in terms of, especially with you having the bricks and mortar store.
Yeah.
And going then from, you guys obviously have an amazing community when it comes to bricks and mortar and in physical location, but you also have a really engaged community online. How have you carved out and made kind of such a strong audience? And what do you think resonates with like that audience more than maybe like people that come into the shop to start with? So
what we do online is we film what we do in the store, the product, the drink, we very often film in the store in Chelsea, for example, downstairs. We film the Knoopologists making the drinks, introducing the customers who may not have been in the store, but who watch our Instagram feeds, how the drinks are being made. So we have a fantastic social media guy who's filming all this, Caleb. He brings the store experience online. And of course, that then encourages people to come into the store. So it goes hand in hand. And we're definitely in a generation of like, you eat with your eyes and the camera eats first before anything. So what you see on your feed, you generally go, I want to go in and get that in store. It's super appetizing, absolutely. And the warmth of it, you get a feel from that social media feed. It's very warm, it's very organic. It's not super funny or anything. It is actually what is in the store. So it is almost like a live feed from what is happening in the store, what is being served. Yeah. And it you're right. When you see it on your feed, it's like food porn, that word, isn't it? You like see the marshmallow and then how it's all like delivered into you and you're like, I want to go and get one. Name a really successful kind of marketing campaign, and then how do you measure success within marketing campaigns? So we're doing a lot of interesting collaborations. So we worked with a almond butter brand at the moment called Money Life. Yeah, Money Life. We like Money Life. About him, we like Money Life. She's been on the pod. So we're doing he's a good one. So we're doing that brings in the stories into our social media, which is very successful. successful. But then operationally, we also have some challenging ones where we're trying to do some really attractive drinks, and we heighten the color with ingredients, with natural ingredients, but still pushing it out a little bit, which puts a little bit of strain onto this staff as well. And those campaigns run a little bit shorter, naturally. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Yep.
And when it comes to like marketing and in live person, experiential events, I was very lucky. I went skiing last week or week before, and I have a lot of hot chocolate when I go skiing. And we spoke about this on our call, but I'm petitioning here for like Knoops on the slopes.
Okay.
And I think that would be a really cool pop-up. You need to hit up all the like places where there's like big vibes, like Apre's big, and have like maybe even put a little bit of alcohol in it, and have like this. I think that'd be so fun. The vans, people, I've got a whole idea, so we'll sort it.
Oh, okay, trademark that. Yeah, no, but that's one, pop-ups and collaborations are one way of, okay, we don't want to really go for bricks and mortar because skiing is very seasonal, obviously. But there could be great opportunities to go into these areas. And there are mobile solutions, which are a little bit tricky operationally, but there are solutions to do this, that you don't have to actually set up a whole store. And of course, I hope nobody wants milkshakes while they're skiing, so that cuts half the store off. It could make it easier. But yeah, there's so many opportunities, and we just have to be flexible to fit into this.
And like the high street, when you look at it today, not necessarily London, I'm talking about kind of mainly more towns, more places outside of towns. They aren't what they were, and I think you, with Knoops, you're bringing back a really nice community feel. You're bringing back people wanting to go into the town centre and sitting and having a hot chocolate and catching up, and that, bringing that kind of localized approach to each store is what you've, I think, done really well.
Super important. Community is very, very important because we want to get everybody in, full stop. And that's why we have such a broad menu, even though it is just chocolate drinks and coffee and other stuff. But that within that frame, there is something for everybody. So it does bring in every age range, dietary requirements, cultural background. They can all meet at a Knoops. So there is something for everybody within that local community. I didn't even envision that when I opened, but as soon as we opened in other places, Manchester and Edinburgh, we saw just the whole rainbow of people coming in, which is amazing. Imagine, we're serving marshmallows that are halal. That's quite rare. All our drinks are halal, so there is it's fantastic. After Ramadan, they deserve a treat.
And do you go to all the store openings?
Wherever I can, yes. Belfast I need to catch up on because I wasn't there at the opening for other reasons. But now I'm going up to meet the team, meet the locals, grab the customer and just have a chat with them. Or, and get the vibe, feel the temperature a little bit in Belfast because it's another island again, so yeah.
And what does a typical day in the life of Jens look like?
I drink a lot of chocolate throughout the day. So very often my first drink is actually a mocha. It's a 54% with a double shot espresso. Even in the winter, I like the iced version of it. At the moment, I'm having coconut milk with that, just to mix it up a little bit. But we also have brilliant dairy. Then I go through all the emails that have been sent because we're working with cacao farmers and chocolate makers around the world. They're coming in at any time. That includes WhatsApp messages. Then I do have an office in my garden. So I live on the South Coast, and that's when I start connecting with the people in the office, have Zoom calls with producers. And I either spend my day there while I'm eating chocolate samples all day long, so tomorrow, for example, I go for a special project to the Jersey Dairy. I'm flying over to Jersey to maybe work on something, or I go to a store opening Belfast on Thursday. I go to plantations. There's a big plantation trip coming up in May, which is very important. So there's never a typical day. It's never boring. It's always chocolate fueled. And then sometimes I just go into the store and experiment with the team, either in Rye or in Kensington, just to find out if there are new trends, or we try new recipes because I might like it, but I want other people to like it as well. So do a bit of market research.
And you mentioned about the WhatsApp messages coming in and the emails. Do you have direct relationships with all your cacao suppliers?
Yeah, absolutely. That's very important for transparency, for my own knowledge, which I then can pass on, reassurance. But I'm also super intrigued because cacao does not grow in Europe. It's further away than we can think of. It's a different lifestyle. It's a different history, it's a different culture, and based on that I also make choices who I want to or can work with and who I shouldn't work with by being there, understanding and deciding.
Absolutely, and then transferring that throughout the business as well, and letting people know and the employees and kind of trickling it down to the customer, because now, transparency is really key within.
Because most people will probably never go to a cacao farm.
Yeah.
Probably not. I wish they would, because it's beautiful, but most people won't.
So the team get a little trip to a cacao farm.
Okay, we're good.
And how do you envision kind of the future of your stores, and where do you see it going? Especially with I think digital, there's a lot going on in the world out there, but I do think people really still want to come into a store. They want to be served by a human. How do you kind of envision that shift?
Well, the product will always be physical. We know that. But the tools to promote the product, to produce the product, to communicate about the product, this will become more digital. So there might even be AI involved to improve workflow. This will not impact the experience the customer have, because it is about drinking the best chocolate drink possible. But we have implemented an app, for example, which was extremely successful because people can prepare in advance before they go to a store what they would like. Obviously, they're collecting loyalty points. They can pay via the app as well. Not everybody wants to stand in front of the menu, so they're looking at the screen. But also, it's less time consuming, so you don't have to queue. In Rye, for example, all the local taxi drivers are ordering either their coffees or their chocolates on the app, pull up, walk in, get their drink, get out. They still have the same experience. They just a little bit more restricted on time, and that's where technology helps us to streamline it.
And do you see any risks in the future with technology kind of implementing?
No, because it is really the impact of the physical product, the warmth, the taste, whatever it evokes in you. This will not be replaced, but I don't deny or ignore technology to help delivering this.
And we spoke about maybe going to Germany. Is there any more environments or kind of markets that you think needs a Knoops?
Oh, every country needs Knoops, obviously, but that's me confident. There are negotiations going on. So obviously there will be more stores in the Middle East. The second one is being built at the moment and will hopefully open May, June. We'll see how it goes, but that's very close. But then we also look across all the ponds, to the east, to the west. And I just came back from New York to do a little bit of market research. They do need Knoops over there. They absolutely need Knoops. I mean, we're here to rescue them for many reasons. But I see a lot of potential there, and we are negotiating, and we're talking about contracts, and there may be something this year, but also going to the east. And we know there is a desire for chocolate over there. There also are fantastic growers in Vietnam and Thailand and so on, where we can tap into the market as well.
And what about franchise model? Would you ever look at something like what McDonald's do, for example?
Probably not within the UK. That's wholly owned. But then what happens in the States, for example, in China, that needs to be negotiated. What will be the best model for such a vast geographical area? That needs to be looked at when the time is right.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Everywhere needs it, and there's so much to go after. I have so many more questions, but I'm conscious of time. But literally, I could keep going. I've got loads more. But I think just before I go to my quick fire round, as a business owner, what would you say keeps you really motivated? What's your non-negotiables for staying really motivated, getting up every morning, kind of doing what you do?
The customer feedback. I never got tired And this still comes through, filters through the stores now, and through the staff, and through feedback. If somebody walks out of the store, comes back and said, you either made my day, or this is the best drink I ever had, to that effort and coming back and reassuring you that you're doing the right thing, absolutely. Yes, then there are numbers as well and all that confirm what you're doing is right. But that effort from a customer giving you, and the confidence as well, to bring you that feedback. And yeah, I mean, I had days in Rye where I took 40 quid, and you think, oh, and then that one customer just, it didn't matter how much I took on that day. I learned so much, and it validated what I'm doing is right. I just need to be a bit more patient.
Yeah, I mean, patience is a virtue, right? So to end, I've got some quick fire questions, but get your questions ready. So, what's your favourite percentage of chocolate?
I don't have a favorite percentage because there is a percentage for a specific mood or need on the day. I said early on, I really like the mocha in the morning, but then I also like to play with white chocolate and all the ingredients. So I never ever get fixed on an origin or percentage. That's not the answer you wanted to hear, is it?
Well, I've now got a gun to your head and you have to choose a percentage.
49. Okay. Because I was in Venezuela with a cacao family that has been farming for 200 years, and I've seen the beans and the fields where the cacao is coming from. So there's an emotional connection there.
The most unusual or surprising ingredient you've ever paired with chocolate?
So I really like rosemary and thyme as well. Thyme was so unsuccessful that we took it off the menu.
It does make me think of roast chicken.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but okay. But rosemary, really beautiful, and a 70% with a little bit of sea salt. But I'm pretty much alone there. I know that. I really love tonka bean. It's so beautiful. But the reputation of the tonka bean, if you eat 2 tons of it, you go crazy, according to American law. So we had to step away from it, unfortunately. But some of the customers are coming up with some fantastical combinations. And there are, when you add all the ingredients together, I think over several million options there. I always tried them when I was behind the counter, just a quick sip, just to make sure it's right, but also to educate myself. And yeah, there were some crazy ones, which I may not have again, but rosemary and some Szechuan pepper, for example, is also on top of that. You don't find that in most chocolate shops.
Definitely. A lot of people do chili with chocolate, which I really like.
Yeah, but we can push it further.
Yeah.
Szechuan pepper, pink pepper, and so on. Black pepper, beautiful and in 80%. Very fragrant, not too spicy.
I'm going to try that.
With vanilla.
If you could have a Knoops hot chocolate with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would you have it with?
That's a tough one. I would love to sit down with every customer and have a chocolate and tell them my story, even if they don't want to listen to it or not. But I would love to pay homage to my grandmother, have a hot chocolate with her, because she triggered this in a way. I think because I'm treating every customer the same, I would really have every customer in front of me and talk over a hot chocolate, and they're all alive.
Yeah, I mean, you are really obsessed with the customer, and I think that's a testament to the success, because it is definitely about that. A country or region whose chocolate you haven't worked with yet but are excited to explore?
So I actually had a call this morning, and we talked about new emerging origins, and Thailand and India are definitely right on top. They are not exporting properly yet, so they do a lot for their own market. But there is some extremely good cacao and some very good chocolate coming out of Thailand and Vietnam and India. So there's definitely a plantation trip coming up, and definitely I want to tap into those flavors because they're very, very different. And they could be too exotic, but we can negotiate something that they produce something that represents that, but is suitable for the Western palate.
And if you weren't in chocolate, what would you be doing?
I would be either an artist as a photographer or drummer.
Ooh, a drummer.
Yeah, I used to be a drummer. and my previous lives. So nothing to do with chocolate. Chocolate drumsticks don't work very well.
Okay, so you need to be on top of the van in the après area with a drum. There we go. Bring them all in.
Dressed.
Dressed.
Yes, you're après ski. Yeah.
Describe Knoops in 3 words.
Okay. Egalitarian. Because it is so wide-reaching and non-judgmental, and everybody come in. Gratifying. It's very gratifying because there's a job to be done and make everybody happy. And I hope we're reaching that point. Whatever the reason is for the customer to come in, we want to satisfy the customer. If it's just nourishment, if it's a gourmet experience they want, if it's coming together and having that focus. The third word, expanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Growth.
Rapidly.
I've got a question. Do you like sweets?
Yes.
Do you?
Yeah.
See, I'm a chocolate person. I don't really like sweets, and that tends to be, say, my friendship group. If they're a sweet person, they don't love chocolate. But I'm surprised you like sweets. I would have thought you'd have been like,
no, I'm not a snob. There's a reason that it all exists, and there's a person who really loves something. My guilty pleasure is, and this is not recorded, I hope, tongue-tastic.
I used to eat a packet of them
Well,
before bed
there you go.
at uni. Like, I don't know how, but I
Yeah,
get a whole packet and then I go to sleep.
Yeah, it's not even really sour at the end because you're just getting so used to it. But it's of course it's rubbish, so don't record this. But
It's definitely recorded.
But it's the nice opposite to all the high quality sustainable chocolate. So you need to have the devil. So
You do.
Yeah.
And Tangfastics are
It's
good. The
definitely
cherries.
devil. Yeah.
Yeah. And one item you always have in your fridge.
Really good whole dairy milk.
Yeah. The Jersey milk is
Jersey.
delicious.
We have a local dairy in East Sussex, Northiam Dairy, so sustainably farmed. I met the cows. It's for me the biggest thirst quencher, and of course a wonderful carrier for the chocolates we use as well.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
coming
for
on
having me.
Getting to Grow, and obviously the
fun.
Ned for having us here this evening.